driver's license of the owner had been suspended. Officers then chased the car for 20 minutes before they managed to stop it just before noon. But according to police, the 33-year-old driver ignored officers' orders to step out of the car and instead attempted to run them over. Officers then drew their pistols and forced him to surrender. Chief Inspector Tam Kan Lun of the Sha Tin District Police explained that officers unholstered their weapons because they felt their lives were at risk. The driver and his 24-year-old female passenger were arrested. Police discovered that the car registration had expired 2 years ago. The driver is being charged for not having third-party insurance, driving with a suspended license, and dangerous driving. More local news. The MTRC is facing a pay dispute with unions who are threatening to fight against a 5% wage hike offer.
And about 160 holidaymakers booked for tours to Egypt will have to cancel their plans because of the political unrest there. While the red alert for travel to Egypt has been active since March 2011, the recent political chaos and violence in the country has prompted authorities in Hong Kong to take further steps. With immediate effect, the Travel Industry Council announced today the temporary suspension of all tours to Egypt until the 20th of this month. About 7 tours involving 160 people are affected by the ban. They have a 6-month window before deciding on switching to another tour or applying for a refund. It's known that one tour group remains in Egypt and there are no plans at the moment to cut short their trip, which ends this Sunday. Council Executive Director Joseph Tung said there was a 30% drop in enrolment numbers for Egyptian tours this summer compared with 2012. Trouble may be on the way for the MTR Corporation after all 7 unions representing the railway operators' employees objected to the latest pay rise offer. Instead of a 5% increase, the unions are demanding 8%, citing their ever-increasing workload and pressure stemming from the public scrutiny. Some even describe the 5% offer as a sly disguise, as the percentage will be adjusted according to a performance evaluation of each employee. While some may get as much as 6.5%, 1 in 2 workers will end up getting only 4.3%. Experienced workers, whose years of service are not a determining factor for wage adjustments, also argue they should be better treated for their loyalty. But for the moment, they have dismissed the possibility of a strike, even if negotiations break down, although a work to rule is possible. With the searing summer heat, there is never a better time to treat yourself to some fresh, juicy fruit. Now more choices are available to consumers as a new variety of organic watermelon has been introduced to local farmers. Originating in Vietnam, the yellow siren has orange-yellow flesh, which boasts a crispy and juicy texture. Another 2 species of pak choy and green pepper, which promises high yields, are also set to make their way to the market as homegrown produce. The Agricultural, Fisheries and Conservation Department said more are on the way.
We will continue to introduce some new variety in our field. Before we introduce to our farmer, we will observe their growth to see whether it is suitable for introduction to the local farming.
Health-conscious consumers can also visit the farmers' market in Chunmun this weekend for some quality produce. Overseas, Bolivian President Evo Morales has threatened to close the U.S. embassy in the capital, La Paz, after 4 European countries denied his plane entry to their airspace. Morales and his entourage were on their way home from Moscow when France, Portugal, Italy and Spain all denied the Bolivian army plane access, claiming they suspected CIA whistleblower Edward Snowden was on board. The plane was forced to land in Vienna, Austria, before resuming its flight. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said the CIA masterminded the incident. Morales said Bolivia was a sovereign state with dignity and would never succumb to intimidation or threats from the US.
Egypt remains tense as supporters of ousted President Mohamed Morsi planned mass rallies against the military for yesterday's coup.
The army says it will allow peaceful protests, but the threat of bloodshed is not far. Egyptian Air Force jets made several flybys in Cairo's smoggy skies, the planes forming a V shape in what the military said was a celebration of the triumph of popular will after the coup that ousted President Mohamed Morsi. While thousands of Egyptians continued partying for a second night in Tahrir Square, political games were being played out in the corridors of power. Prosecutor General Abdel Mahmoud told a press conference that all the political prisoners arrested under Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood's rule had to be released. It's not fair and it is not just that the revolutionaries stay in jails and those who incited and encouraged their imprisonment remain outside prison, he told reporters. He then ordered the arrest of high-ranking Brotherhood leaders. Around the same time, the Brotherhood told the media that it's the victim and called on people to join in peaceful protests.
And we would like to stress on the following facts. 1. Our full refusal and revokeness of the military coup that has happened against the President, against the Constitution and against the legitimacy of the state. And our full denial of cooperation with the authority that has extorted the will of the people. And we will not share into that authority.
Pro-Morsi protesters gathered at Cairo University campus and held a sit-in. But tension was high as soldiers arrived armed with tear gas as if they were expecting trouble. The army has also deployed troops in Morsi's hometown of Zagazig after clashes between the former president's supporters and opponents. Officials in the new interim government insist his ousting was not a coup, which would mean negative repercussions for Egypt and its international ties.
I talked today to Secretary of State John Kerry, and of course he was concerned about what's going on, and he wanted me to give him an idea. He was worried about, you see, the status of human rights and this kind of thing. I assured him there will be no retribution, no acts of vengeance, that nobody will be treated outside the law, that no punishment will be meted to anybody unless there is a crime committed and within the laws of the country.
Former Foreign Minister turned opposition politician Amu Musa insisted the coup was actually a popular revolt, and that's what he would tell US President Barack Obama.
I would be telling him that, Mr. President, this is not a coup d'etat. This is a popular uprising. This is the second revolution. This is Egypt defending itself against violation of basic rights, even violation of democracy.
But Obama doesn't appear convinced and summoned his national security advisers to the White House to discuss Egypt. Washington's allies were also concerned, with French President Francois Hollande telling reporters in Tunisia that Egypt's democratic process has stopped and must return. NATO says whether it's a coup should not be an issue.
I don't think the most important thing right now is a theoretical discussion about how to label what has happened. Whether it's a coup or not, I don't think the label is the most important thing. The most important thing now is to find solutions.
Italian Prime Minister Enrico Letta was more positive, saying Rome has great confidence in the self-determination of the Egyptians to solve its problems. Still to come on ATV's main news tonight, doubts about government plan to invite private developers to build new towns.
Cleanup time as algae turns Qingdao Sea and beaches bright green.
It's the night for patients with spinal cord injury.